I found out on a Tuesday. Not a dramatic Tuesday. I was sitting at the kitchen table, laptop open, because I'd gotten a low balance alert on our joint account. We used it for household expenses, groceries, utilities, repairs. Nothing complicated. The balance was $340. It should have been closer to $2,600. I refreshed the page. Still $340. This is the kind of cheating revenge story that doesn't start with a confrontation. It starts with a number that doesn't add up, and a woman who never throws anything away. Marcus and I had been married for 9 years. I owned the house before we married. It was in my name alone, and we'd never changed that. We also co-owned a small accounting firm, 5 employees, mostly local business clients. Marcus handled meetings and networking. I handled the books. I managed our household finances too, because I was better at it and we both knew it. He'd hand me receipts from work trips. I'd log them, and we split household costs 50-50. That arrangement had worked for 7 years, until it didn't. I opened the transaction history. 11 withdrawals I didn't recognize, mostly small, $80 here, $120 there, but 4 were larger, $340, $490, $510, $275, all cleared in the past 6 weeks. All ATM withdrawals, not purchases, not transfers. Cash. I pulled up my spreadsheet. I log every transaction. I've done it since we opened the account together. None of those amounts appeared anywhere in my records. Marcus hadn't mentioned them. No receipts. No explanation. I didn't say anything that night. I told myself there had to be another explanation. There wasn't. The next morning I opened the business dashboard. That's when I saw the transfer. $4,800. 3 days earlier. Business account to Marcus's personal account. That alone wasn't impossible. Sometimes he reimbursed himself after covering client expenses. But we had a rule. Anything over $1,000 required dual approval. I opened the authorization log. Only Marcus's login appeared. I refreshed the page. Same entry. Description, client entertainment. I opened the full transfer history. 3 more payments, $2,200, $3,100, $1,950. All labeled the same way, all within the past 6 weeks. I took screenshots. Then I exported the transaction log. I pulled 3 months of household statements and printed them too. Sat at the table with a highlighter. The pattern was there once I looked. Every time Marcus traveled, there were ATM withdrawals. The day before he left, sometimes the day he returned. Small enough not to trigger anything individually, large enough that, added together, they totaled just over $4,200 in 90 days. I checked the total 3 times. Then I cross-referenced his corporate expense reports, the ones he'd emailed me at tax time. The ATM withdrawals weren't on any of them. His hotel was covered, his flights were covered, his per diem was covered. So what was the cash for? I found the first receipt by accident. I was looking for car insurance documents in the filing cabinet when I found a folded receipt tucked inside an old travel folder. A restaurant. In a city Marcus had visited in February. Dinner for 2. $214. His expense report for that trip listed a solo dinner at a different restaurant. $34. I stood at that cabinet for a long time. I took a photo of the receipt. Then I put it back exactly where I'd found it. Over the next 4 days, I went through every folder in the cabinet. There were 6 more: a hotel bar tab, a spa receipt, not something you'd put on a corporate card, 2 more dinner receipts, different cities, same pattern, dinner for 2, wine, the kind of bill you pay in cash so it doesn't show up anywhere connected to your name. I laid them all out on the table and photographed each one. Then I kept digging. Our business card receipts were set to archive automatically in our shared email. I hadn't thought about that in years. Marcus clearly hadn't thought about it at all. I opened the folder. A restaurant receipt. $312, steak, wine, 2 desserts. Timestamp, 11:42 p.m. On a night Marcus had told me he was working late. I opened the next one. $268, different restaurant, 2 meals, wine again. Then a hotel invoice, $1,120, 2 nights, 2 guests. He had never turned the automatic archive off. I built a spreadsheet. Date, transfer, restaurant, receipt total. By the end of the week, the combined number, business reimbursements, household withdrawals, receipts in the email folder, had reached just over $23,700. I sat back and looked at that number for a long time. Then I opened our company documents. We had formed the firm as a partnership and later converted it to an LLC. Marcus had handled most of the paperwork during that transition, but I kept digital copies of everything. Operating agreement, ownership schedule, amendments. I opened the amendment from 5 years earlier when we expanded. I hadn't looked at that document in years, but something about the reimbursements made me read it carefully. I scrolled through the clauses: expense reporting, authorization limits, internal review procedures. Then I stopped. There was a section Marcus had insisted we include when we wrote the employee handbook. At the time, it felt unnecessary. He said every firm needed internal audit protections. I leaned closer to the screen and read the clause again. Reimbursement irregularities exceeding $10,000 trigger automatic audit review. I checked my spreadsheet. $23,700. He had crossed that threshold weeks ago. I said it out loud. He forgot about the expense review clause. The clause didn't require an argument. It required documentation. I already had the documentation. I also called a family law attorney that week. She explained that money spent on an affair can be treated as dissipation of marital assets in a divorce proceeding. The household withdrawals, $4,200 in 90 days, documented, dated, cross-referenced against his travel records, weren't just missing money. They were evidence. She also confirmed what I already knew about the house. It was mine. It had been mine before the marriage. It was never his to negotiate with. I met our company attorney the next morning with the full picture: the spreadsheet, the bank logs, the receipts I'd photographed, the hotel invoices from the shared email. He reviewed everything quietly, then turned the operating agreement toward me and tapped the clause. This triggers an internal audit. That afternoon, the firm's financial accounts locked for review. Marcus called 2 hours later. He sounded confused. Payroll wouldn't process. The system said the accounts were under audit. I told him the review clause had triggered automatically, which was technically true. He asked what caused it. I said the system flagged the reimbursements. There was a long silence. The audit finished 2 days later. Every reimbursement Marcus had filed required supporting documentation. The receipts he submitted didn't match the receipts in the shared email folder. The restaurants existed, but the clients listed on the forms didn't. The expenses were personal, which meant the money had to be returned immediately. The audit report calculated the total, $23,740, plus internal penalties under the operating agreement. Marcus called again that night. His voice sounded different, quieter. He said there must have been a misunderstanding with the reimbursements. I didn't argue. 3 days later, the money returned to the company account. Every dollar. The hotel charges stopped. The restaurant receipts stopped appearing in the email folder. The late meetings stopped too. I filed for divorce shortly after. The financial process was straightforward because the documentation was already organized. The dissipation claim held. The household withdrawals, dated, cross-referenced, logged against his travel records, were factored into the final settlement. The house was never part of the negotiation. My attorney confirmed that in the first week, and it never came up again. The divorce took 7 months. Marcus had assumed 9 years of marriage gave him a stake in everything, that I'd be too trusting, or too disorganized, or too hurt to look carefully. He was wrong about all 3. I still have the spreadsheet, every transaction, every receipt I photographed and logged. I archived it after the final settlement date. The firm is still operating. The accounts are clean. The employees never missed payroll. Sometimes I open the old email archive. All the receipts are still there. Timestamps, restaurants, hotel invoices, and the clause Marcus wrote into the operating agreement himself. He used to joke that nothing financial could hide from me. He was right. He just forgot it applied to him, too. Some people assume that what's yours stops being yours the moment someone else gets comfortable. What they don't account for is the paper trail. It turns out this kind of thing happens more often than most people realize. It almost always starts the same way, a number that doesn't add up.